Are CEOs in Australia actively discriminating against men? Let's have a look. Good evening everyone and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Today I'd like to have a look at two organisations which are encouraging businesses throughout Australia to actively discriminate against men, apparently. All under the guise of increased diversity and female leadership. It doesn't sound fair. Let's have a look. So I am an architect and I'm involved and go to a lot of events with the Property Council of Australia. They have great Christmas parties. If you haven't been to one, I recommend it. Now, I received this in my inbox today and I thought I'd share it with you because it started me down a little rabbit hole. So, addressing diversity backlash to drive diversity buy-in. Okay, property leaders are urged to uncover underlying drivers of resistance to gender diversity initiatives as a new report released by the Male Champions of Change and Chief Executive Women. According to CEW research, men still hold 79% of chief executive roles in the ASX 200, 95% of CEO positions, where, what's more, shock or a gasp, 21% of ASX 2000 companies have only men in their leadership team. Who cares? You know, there is evidence, substantial evidence of differences in personality traits that lend people towards being more ambitious and these careers. To get into these very senior positions, it would be a nightmare. It would be a lot of work. Oh, well, it was. Maybe not anymore. So programs like Property Male Champions of Change, established in 2015, so this is their marketing, are making headway. For example, Mirvac, and that's a large development company, has achieved 50% female representation on its board, and many other companies have surpassed the 40% target. But there's more work that can be done. Yeah, you probably wouldn't be happy unless it's 100% female representation. How about groups of women get together and just start their own company? Oh, wait a minute, they are. I just don't understand why your genitals should have an effect in working in this role. Backlash and buy-in, responding to the challenges in achieving gender equality. Oh, so I honestly, probably naively, thought that this was the article looking at some of the false reasoning behind diversity and the false research behind these diversity drives. Okay, I'm naive, guys, okay? I know I'm naive. Maybe I just keep thinking the better everything. But So the report was released yesterday, explores, or a few days ago, explores the range of responses to gender diversity initiatives and how companies around Australia can continue to make change. Elizabeth Broderick, AO, so she's an Order of Australia, the conveyor of Male Champions of Change, says a certain level of backlash is to be expected and is a sign of progress. So if we're going to have a look at this group of people that are behind these organisations, and one thing you have to understand, that the level of the level these people are, that the financial rewards they receive from what they do for work, I would imagine they would barely even encounter the working class or average Australians, you know, on their day-to-day work. And I remember I've sat in lunches and business, you know, lunches with people like this, and I remember they were all discussing solar panels and all these government and how good it is, and I kept asking, you know, why are all of these people, you know, who can afford to have, you know, $300 lunch, getting welfare from the government in the form of subsidized panels, when that's probably more than a pensioner gets in a whole year, you know? But anyway, I probably wasn't very popular in that group, eh? So bringing about change requires perseverance and courage. See, they think they're courageous. No, you're just virtue signaling. You're following the flow. You're not being countercultural at all. I wouldn't say that's courageous. I think it's the opposite of courageous. I think it's actually quite cowardice. It also calls for change makers to engage with the range of responses rather than dismissing the views of those who stand in the way of reform. Oh, yes, okay, fantastic. I would like to see how you engage with them, because we'll see what you all have to say in this footage. So Catherine Fagg, president of the CEW, says backlash comes in many forms. It's not always obvious. It can be confronting and requires a human response. Among the forms of resistance outlined in the report are claims of preferential treatment of women in hiring, promotion, and development, as well as more insidious forms of backlash which manifest as public criticism. I guess I'm doing public criticism, but there is preferential treatment for the promotion development of women. Members, or your CEO members of the group, admitted in this footage we're going to watch. And I'm just going to jump here to the Going Blind study. Now this, if you're not familiar with it, I'll put links to all this in the description, but this was a research study. So Going Blind to see more clearly unconscious bias in Australian public service positions. So what they did, and we'll just jump straight down to the summary, they took a whole group of public servants and they gave them all resumes, and they removed all of the data that could be used to identify, you know, the sex, gender, the race, whatever. And they found that it didn't increase diversity. They ended up hiring people based on their qualifications and their ability, maybe merit-based. So they found that there was actually a bias towards women and Indigenous people. So the results show that overall, de-identifying applicants at the shortlisting stage does not appear to assist in promoting diversity with the APS in hiring. Overall, APS officers discriminated in favor of female and minority candidates. So, you know, you can make this statement right here, but research from the government has just discredited what you said here. Okay, just discredited it. I suggest you have a look at that. But you know, am I wrong? Please let me know in the comments. Am I wrong in thinking this type of knowledge of this type of research is you know, I expect this to be common knowledge. I expect someone at a CEO level to understand that this virtue signaling bullshit isn't based on reality. Maybe I'm just being naive. Sorry, I've got to have some water. So let's continue. Lend-Lease's Group CEO and Managing Director, Stephen McCain, addresses the concerns of men who think they are now at a disadvantage. This is not the case. It's simply about providing a level playing field. Ugh. Because historically, this hasn't always been done. Yeah, okay. Oh, well, let me put it another way. What about classism? What about, okay, there's people from, there's a public school or private school. So here in Australia, it's different to the UK. In the UK, what you call a public school, we call a private school. It's kind of a hoity-toity, snobby school. So there's cliques of people that do business and make connections there in those schools. I would say that would be an unfair advantage to the working class people that don't get to have those connections. How are we going to address that level playing field? I don't think you will you? You know, Fagg says it is important for business leaders to show that they are neither fazed by backlash nor will their commitment waver. Okay, good. So Andy Vesey, CEO of AGL, agrees. Okay, well, I am going to cancel using AGL now. I think, honestly, for people who want to support businesses that, because these businesses are too big to give a shit anymore, and the only way they're going to keep virtue signaling again and again and again, you need to start taking collective action. You need to stop spending your money and supporting these organizations. And it's going to be hard sometimes. It really is. So when you're making change of this kind, if things don't work out, it's because there are forces that kept it in place. Ugh. The deal with status, with political power, with economic power, and it takes courage and tremendous work to change. You see, I find this is all disingenuous and it's kind of irrelevant. It's not going to really affect their pay packet, is it? Maybe they'll get a bit more for some marketing, but they're all set. At this level, they are all set. You know, they've got their homes, they've got their families. They've established their career. Now they're in this champagne socialist mode where they want to give back and leave a legacy. Okay, so to fuck with merit-based society that allowed me to get here, let's just change up the whole system. You know, and then housing is super expensive. A whole generation can't bloody well afford. Anyway, the report features case studies to illustrate how companies are addressing resistance. CBRE, for example, held discussions with senior managers, shared the business case for gender equality, and created a space for debate, a safe space. The process helped CBRE uncover core issues around the barriers to change, such as limited diversity in talent pools for certain roles and business lines. Oh, well, there you go. It's probably got nothing to do with, you've got limited applicants. Wow. Managing backlash is never easy. It's about making space for all views, particularly those that are opposition to progressing gender equality. Sure, so you can identify the people who have wrongthink and kick them out. It's only then that leaders can understand how collectively we can achieve change. Wow. So that got me aware of this. So I thought I'd have a look at some of these organizations. Now, I've shown you the Going Blind study that kind of disputes some of the claims they're already making. And this is Male Champions for Change. So we need more decent, powerful men to step up besides women in building a gender equal world. You know, so it's just, this has to be the Chardonnay, the champagne sipping bloody socialist, you know. It's not going to affect these people in these roles. It's going to be about them virtue signaling, leaving a legacy, feeling like they've actually done something, and screwing up for everyone else, really. So Male Champions of Change. Let's look at this organization. What's about them? MCC Institute works with influential leaders to redefine men's roles in taking action on gender inequality. I wonder how the whole Me Too movement is going to affect this, if they want men to step up and mentor these women, if in 5 years' time you could be accused of sexually inappropriate behavior or rape or something, and, you know, wow. It activates peer groups of influential male leaders, supports them to step up besides women, and drives the adoption of actions across private sector and government. Well, see, we shouldn't, government, you know, if private businesses that are not getting any government funding want to do this stupid shit, we should shame and humiliate them, but they should not be encouraging government to do it, because this would not represent every taxpayer's opinion. But they don't care about that, do they? No. The first MCC peer group, the Foundation Group, began in 2010 with 8 Australian leaders and has since grown to a group of 30 CEO, board directors, governing department, university, military leaders. Military leaders. Is this why we've got all the funny shit going on in our military, where they're making it easier for women to get into the infantry, where they're half the time they need to spend? They only need to compete for 2 years now in Australia, not 4 years for men. And they want to have arbitrary bloody quotas. It's just insane. And the sad thing is, these girls that probably go into this, you know, they may be giving up their most fertile period of their life to have a family, and then they hit 35, 40 and realize, oh shit, I'm going to have to spend 200 grand to do what should be free. New groups are forming across different organizations, sectors and geographies. The MCC coalition now encompasses 8 groups amounting to 130 leaders across Australia. So this is big. This is a big organization. The heart of Male Champions Change strategy involves men of power and influence, so the patriarchy. So they need to call upon the power of the apparent patriarchy. Oh, this is awesome. Forming a high-profile coalition to achieve change on gender equality issues in organizations and communities. Oh, we take the following approach to get moving, get momentum, and accelerate our impact. Meet at least 4 times a year as a group. Well, okay, that's just fun. No delegates are accepted. Agree on a shared purpose, clear priorities, and publicly committing. So this is interesting. These members are coming together. They are publicly dictating a position, and they're guilt-shaming them 4 times a year to make sure they're doing it. They're one-upping. Establishing a sport team that works with us to ensure we deliver on our individual and shared commitments. Share our experiences, data, and reflect on our own leadership. Listen widely and develop personal insights into the issues and opportunities for improvement. Work together to identify and implement progressive, high-impact actions. So it's just all show that disrupt the status quo and create meaningful and lasting change. Well, you're going to create meaningful and lasting change. Yes, I don't think it's going to be as positive an outcome as you think. Lead with action and advocacy, working within and across our organizations and collectively at community level. Holding ourselves accountable, evaluating and sharing our experiences. Okay, so it's just a organization where they're coming here, and this research is part of what they're involved in. So they're all coming together and being held accountable. I need to look at more what organizations are involved in. I'll do another video where we look at them and let's see who we shouldn't go to. So the other organization that came together is CEW, the Chief Executive Women, and this is the group here. Now, so it was founded in 1985. Chief Executive Women now represents 500 of Australia's most senior and distinguished women leaders, whose shared vision is women leaders enabling women leaders. Yeah, so that sounds completely fine and reasonable. We strive to educate and influence all levels of Australian business and government on the importance of gender balance. Okay, why? Through advocacy, targeting program scholarship, CEW works to remove the barriers to women's progression and ensure equal opportunity for prosperity. See, I think fundamentally, this whole thing, this whole feminist push, this whole drive for equality is that people are not seeing the world anymore as a family unit. You need to think, you know, if the whole family goes up, regardless of who's working more, who's working less, that's good for the family. We're here, it's, oh no, the husband's earning more than the wife, we can't have that. Or the MiG-towers are going off, oh shit, now the women are just going to take everything, detached from civilization. You know, it's twisted in a way. CEW's programs are informed by research, led by CEW members, and generally supported by our partners. Okay, so it's their own research. Why our work matters. Now this is interesting. Female graduates outnumber men at record levels in Australia. So, oh no, there's a gender inequality here between university graduates. We all saw the ad in Adelaide University about mansplaining. Oh boy. And what are they doing about that? Are they going to address this? Are they going to, you know, target this inequality? Yeah, bullshit. So female graduates outnumber men, yet they start earning 90 cents for every dollar that male counterparts earn. What? Wow, that must mean there's blatant discrimination and breaking all the laws that we have in this country here. Wow. You saw in 7-Eleven where they were ripping off their workers. It's happening everywhere with university graduates too. No, it's not. It's differences in life choices, differences in qualifications that people do. This is what if these organizations are so disingenuous with their arguments, I can't take anything they say seriously. All of this stuff here can get thrown out the window because they're putting such disingenuous bullshit arguments forward. You know, okay, women, maybe they graduate in education more than men, nursing more than men, you know, in more caring roles, they get paid less than men working in STEM, science, engineering. You know, if you have to go out into a coal mine, underground, doing engineering calculations that could risk people's lives, you're going to get paid more than someone that is teaching in a primary school. That's why the women that do those jobs get paid more than the women that do these jobs. Why don't people at this level understand this? Or I can only think, I see this just as deception. So fewer women than men participate in the paid workforce, 60% for women compared to 70% for men, and part-time work is dominated by women, with only around 6% of part-time jobs managerial. Yes, well, that's because women, now this is going to be shocking, women are actually necessary to procreate our species, and a lot of them have children, and then they want to kind of maybe spend time with their children, raise their children, not give them over to daycare to take care of them or put them in school where they never see them. They may want to spend time and do a bit of work part-time to kind of help out and allow them to keep the foot in the work, but they really love spending time with their family. That is a good thing. Because if the more parental involvement you have in children, if the parent, all things being equal, that's better. Why do they not see this? So here's one of the things they care about. I tried to get the infographic to show you, but I'm afraid it doesn't work. So financial equality. Women outnumber men as graduates and yet earn less at every point in their working lives, eventually retiring with half the funds of their male contemporaries. So this is not blatant. This has got more to... Okay, I'll explain it to your CEOs very simply. It's to do with career choices, degree choices, lifestyle choices. Okay, they choose careers, they choose degrees that are different, that don't pay as well. Careers, They make different choices in their careers than men. Lifestyle choices, they have children. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't start penalizing men because their wives are having kids. To even out, we'll all get screwed in the long run. We will all get screwed in the long run. The only people that won't are the childless, leaders that we have. All the ones in Europe are childless now, and they're fucking up the bloody continent. These childless people that frankly don't give a shit because they're going to die and they'll just piss it all away when they go. So, CEW makes a valuable contribution to the national debate about how we achieve genuine equality between men and women in Australia. So there is undeniable evidence that we've had a long way to go in Australia before financial equality for men and women is achieved. Women outnumber men as graduates at a ratio of 5 to 4. Wow. Wow. So there's an inequality in university graduates. Well, men are checking out of university. I started to see it when I was going there. There was a lot of this feminist stuff coming through. I didn't kind of take it seriously. I just laughed at it. It's probably naive on my part. I was shocked. This is embarrassing to admit. I was shocked to see all this union propaganda up there with the lecturers. And I'm thinking, well, why are they reading this stuff? They should know that a merit-based capitalist society has the best outcome for everyone. This is just stuff stupid anarchists and commies that basement dwellers read. Shows you how naive I was, to be honest. And they start earning out 90%. So they believe in the pay gap. They believe in the pay gap, and they're quite disingenuous. So this is, what this organization is about. So the mission statement here kind of fell apart when I saw what they believe. So they've released this report, this document here, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at that report. But before we do, I just want to share a part of the Sex Discrimination Act we have here in Australia. I want to share this with you so you're aware of it. And just keep this in your mind, just for no reason. I think it may have something to do with what we're about to look at. So the Sex Discrimination Act of 1984, this is Section 3 Objectives. This is from Commonwealth Consolidated Acts. I'll share this link with you. If you want to go through the Act, go ahead. But guys, these things are painful to look at. Just trust me. So the objectives of the Act are to give effect to certain provisions of the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and to provisions of other relevant international instruments, and to eliminate, so far as possible, discrimination against persons on the ground of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, intersexual status, marital or relationship status, pregnancy or potential pregnancy, or breastfeeding in the areas of work, accommodation, education, the provision of goods, facilities, services, the disposal of land, the activities of clubs and administration of Commonwealth law, and the programs, and to eliminate, so far as possible, discrimination on the grounds of family responsibilities in the area of work. To eliminate, so far as possible, discrimination involving sexual harassment in the workplace, in educational institutions, and in other areas of public activity, and to promote recognition and exceptions within the community of the principles of equality of men and women. Okay, so for the equality of men and women, we already have an act in place that is addressing all of these issues that they're worried about. So if women are actually coming out with degrees and they're performing at the same level of men, same level of work, because you can have the same degrees, but some people can be shit hot and some can be there's going to be a difference in pay. And even it comes down to bonuses. So let's have a look at this clip here. And let me just change some setting, guys, so I can make sure it works. And here we go.
We know that whenever there is change, there is also going to be challenge as well. We know there have been very different responses, from people absolutely embracing it and other people, of course, pushing back very hard.
So they're referring to this whole diversity push here that they're talking about.
So we're not really here to debate whether backlash exists. I think we can all acknowledge it does exist. We see it whether it's in our own organisations, whether we see it more broadly, but to really have a discussion about what works and makes a difference.
So they're not even discussing or questioning the validity of their fundamental arguments. They've gone beyond that. They don't care about that. They want to address the wrongthink that is coming in their own organisations and in the community, the backlash. lucky we have these leaders to guide us.
I much believe it. It's not about shutting down views which are oppositional to making progress on gender equality. We must open up the space for all views, engage with those views, but be very strong about why gender equality matters.
I'd like to question why some of your colleagues here are actively discriminating against men with particular programs that you have in their organisations, because that seems to go against Part 4 of the objectives of the Sexual Discrimination Act.
Why it's linked to innovation, why it's linked to productivity, but why it's...
It's not. It is not linked to productivity. I've not found any claims that back this up. People repeat it's these type of things like the whole gender purchasing. The whole claim that women make 80% of purchases in the household. It's bullshit. It's come from marketing companies. And there's no academic research. You dig down, it's just more marketing companies making these claims, and they build one upon the other. It's like newspapers reporting that, you know, Paul Joseph Watson and Sagan are alt-right, and, you know, one guy will report it, and all the rest just keep referencing that initial report that was wrong. It's just, yeah.
It's deeply important for human rights that we move forward, not just as organisations, but as a nation, as Australia.
I think the one that resonates a lot with me is that there's a privilege with being seen as an individual.
One thing, if you're watching this, I suggest you play a game. Every time you hear an Australian accent in these CEOs, you do a shot of Bundy rum. Has to be Bundy rum.
That women are often not afforded. And because of that, you're seen first as a woman and through that lens, and secondly as an individual. And so when you talk about backlash, it really is quite important. And when people talk about fatigue, I find it funny because I'm sort of like, no one's more fatigued than I am. You know, this has been 30 years, and still when you show up, there's a little bit of a question in people's minds.
It's because our education system in the last 30 years in Australia and our economic system is about equality. And when you are actively discriminating against people based on gender to lift up another group, it's inequality.
We're talking about backlash, and I was reflecting on this, and I personally had backlash. You know, I've had a 30-year working career, and I'll tell you my views on target.
Notice how all these people say 30-year working career. Okay, they're from like 2 generations ago, a previous generation ago. They've got a completely different worldview to what they experienced. They are not, you know, the world that they've experienced, particularly coming up in their careers, does not exist anymore. It's completely different now, and they're shaping it, responding to their own experiences. And you can't tell me that's not affecting them. And they're at the end of their careers.
Targets or quotas. I, as a woman leader, was dead set against quotas. All the way up my career, I said quotas are bad. And I said, you know what, if there are targets or quotas and I get promoted, I'll be a token woman. I'll be told I only got the job because I was a woman. And I have to tell you, I now think about targets and quotas far differently as a business leader. And as a business leader,
It's because it's a different market now. You're not being courageous, you're not being brave, you're just going with the flow. You know, it'll have marketing advantages to your business. You'll be able to say, oh, look what we're doing, we've instigated this program. You'll get some bloody stupid award somewhere, and, you know, you'll burn a bit of talent, you'll create a bit of inequality and resentment in your organization, but you'll take a nice CEO jump, a golden parachute, and move on to the next one. You know.
need to drive an organization to outstanding performance. A revenue target, a safety target, a culture target, a profit.
Notice how she lists all these targets. Revenue, safety, culture. Notice. I wonder if revenue and safety will have anything to do with this. Or I think revenue may be affected if you move away from a merit-based selection process.
Profitability target. We have measures for all that. So why wouldn't we have quotas for women in leadership?
So can I just ask though on that, was it the shift in your perspective because of the change in role that actually changed your view, or was it something that happened one day?
Part of it was shift in role. There's no doubt on that. But I also think the thing was, Liz, I got so frustrated with the pace of change.
Yeah.
I went to my first gender bias training 28 years ago.
This stuff has been around 28 years. Gender bias training. Just look at anything of... Just look up Jordan Peterson, type him into Google and look up gender bias training. Look at this guy. He's bored out of his mind.
I will tell you something, that unless, when you're doing the change of this kind, the reason things don't change is because there are forces that keep it in place. Those forces are very hard to move. They have to change, they deal with status, with political power, with economic power, and changing those not only take courage, that takes tremendous work to make change. You said, why is it taking 28 years? It's not because nobody gets it. It's because, do we really put in the effort and treat it at the same levels of other levels of social injustice?
I agree with Andy.
There's social justice warriors. Wow.
Andy, I don't spend any time justifying why this is important, and I'm not going to. I do not do town halls and stand up and say, let me tell you why I think diversity is really valuable for ANZ.
Okay, we're going to just pause on our ANZ CEO here. And I just want to jump to something recently that's happened here in Australia. Just kind of to share with you, particularly with our foreign viewers. Now, we've had a Banking Royal Commission here, and ANZ has come with some horrendous behaviour, forcing farmers off land. And I will link to this article for you to go through. But here's an example. This is just a snip of what ANZ did. And we'll go here. Here's just the snippet. So just to recap, ANZ had required the Harleys to sell all of their property. Steinberg, yes. Including their home. Steinberg, yes. And their sheep, yes. And when they didn't sell the properties fast enough, it sold the properties itself as mortgagee in possession. Yes. And when that didn't raise enough to pay off the debt, ANZ threatened the Harleys with a bankruptcy proceeding. Yes. So here we have the CEO saying, oh, I don't do town halls, I don't say this, I don't need to explain this, while his people are kicking bloody farmers off their land, forcing them to sell everything. The banks, there's cases of banks where they reevaluated the value of properties. For, one farmer, he was in his 80s, he paid every bloody payment. They reevaluated his property, kicked him off. He couldn't, So the banks aren't your friends. Don't think about it. But so why are you wasting your time on this gender equality stuff, and you're too good and too important to even convince or iterate why you're doing it, when you have no empathy? Maybe this is why you need women in there. Maybe they'll up your empathy. Okay, maybe you need it. Maybe I'm wrong. But so, it's all bullshit. I've seen this, yeah, whatever, mate. Let's keep going.
Right? Because I don't think I have to make that case. To your point, it's like me standing up and saying, let me tell you why integrity is really important in a bank. Yeah?
Integrity is really important. Oh, yeah. Look up Royal Commission and banking here in Australia, and yeah.
But this stuff is insidious, and it's not just within the workforce, it's in the society that surrounds us. And I actually like the safety analogy, Andy, because on safety, you never get sustainable high safety outcomes just through a compliance focus. You want people to actually believe in the safety case.
So this is quite a smart way of approaching these things. Now, I read in one of Cialdini's book, or Influence, where an example was a CEO taking over a large aluminium manufacturing organization, wanted to be able to track their workforce a lot better, and the unions opposed it. They didn't want any monitoring, none of that. The unions opposed it. So the strategy the CEO used was the safety aspect, was playing the safety card. Then they got the worker engagement, then they got the union engagement, then they got what they want. They could get more efficiencies by managing their workforce better, The union's got safety that they could use to argue. So he's using the same old trick, using the safety. And you can see it in many businesses as well. They'll cloak and dagger what they want under the guise of safety.
Classic Bradley curve. And so for me, this is the same. Yes, you've got to have the clear standards. You have to be rigorous in setting those standards and upholding them.
There's a bit of it that's what's in it for the men. And people don't like to say that that's important, but I think it has to be. And I think that's why when we talk about inclusiveness, when we talk about flex working, you know, when we introduced that in BP, one of the first people that came to me and took advantage of it was a man, right?
The more transparent we are about the programs and the things we're doing and why, the less kind of backlash.
Are you transparent about the farmers you're kicking off the land? Sorry, I'll stop.
Again, people, and again, I'm, you know, paraphrasing, people say, look, at least I understand why you're doing it.
Why is the Australian the one I hate the most on this panel?
You've told me, I understand. I may not like it for me, but I understand.
It's because they are worried of getting fired and not being able to feed their family.
Why you have a program that, you know, is only for women.
Is that about taking the fear out of it?
Did you hear that? The program that's only for women.
I think, which is when you allow all the perspectives. I absolutely agree with you, Shane, to make space for all the perspectives to be aired, because if you try and shut down that person who speaks about what they fear about the future for them, then you just actually send the resistance and backlash underground.
Yes.
And you send them to the other polarity, really, which
Well,
makes it even
I mean, the
more
other feedback we had is what people really dislike is if they see it as in any way being sneaky.
I might
Sorry.
add something here,
Yeah.
because I think our experience is different from many others around the table. But there's a whole lot of people in the organization who will say, you know, the nature of mining work is that it's very physical, it has different rosters and so on, and these things are just naturally more suited to men rather than...
Don't know if you'd say contemporary mining work, but driving in a truck. It'd be interesting to see the number of women working in these mining organizations, how many of them are doing the physical roles that he's saying, because a lot of them are actually working in the office roles.
Than women. So the putting in place that aspirational goal of gender balance by 2025 has just mobilized a different energy in the organization and has unlocked a level of creativity that we didn't have there previously. And so it's been focusing on changing the nature of the work. So one of the things that we've done is we've been in redesigning facilities to address the very heavy physical strain that's required for some of our work. And lo and behold, not only has that opened the work up for women, we've had a whole lot of men saying, hang on a second, we're being injured less. This feels really good. You know, we're able to, you know, to do this job easier.
When I became...
Going back to the mining one there, it's interesting to see that a lot of them are actually decanting workers off certain parts of it. They're installing robotically controlled vehicles that are removing all the need for like 3 shifts of drivers. So, yeah.
I'm CEO in 2013-14, we had 16% of our partners were women. We're now at 25%, and we're nowhere near where we want to be. Our target is 30% in 2 years' time. So, but to get there has been really difficult. And I often use the word trench warfare when I'm talking with my leadership team. And we have 25 senior male partners sponsoring 25 up-and-coming females.
See, that's interesting. I'm surprised with now that Me Too has come out, I wonder how many of them are comfortable doing that or being alone with their female sponsors.
Who are just outside the partnership group. So you run it for 4 years, you've got 100 of your partners out of 500 who've now gone back into the business as senior leaders and have actually become spokespeople and proponents of what we're doing. As the program's progressed, though, we've started to hear a bit of noise in relation to why are all the sponsors men? And then second of all, why is this program only for women?
Hear that? That program, it's discriminating, only based for women. Which, you know, probably 30 years ago, there would be some merit to that, but...
Why can't I as a man get onto this program? And the answer I've given to that across our firm is that we're not. I don't look at this, by the way, through a gender lens. I try and avoid the word gender.
Bullshit.
Equality. I talk about fairness in our organisation and talk fairness first.
To get to equality, sometimes.
Where's his answer? They've cut out his answer. It's just got fairness. It's not fair. It's not fair. Fundamentally, if there's one group of people that can access something, another group that can't, that's unfair. Am I missing something?
Sometimes you need a bit of inequality. So we have to get the
There's going to be inequality in a merit-based society. You are trying to undo that. You are trying to undo that. Oh.
The playing field, even you've got to invest a little bit more in programs for women to give them the opportunity to just even the playing field. And that may not seem equal, but you're not starting from equal.
Probably, I don't know, 80.
No, you're not starting from equal. There are more women graduating from universities with degrees than men. There's already an inequality there.
Or 90% of what we initially experience as backlash is either because people don't have an understanding of what this is and what it isn't.
Well, we set the norms, we set the behaviors, we tell what's expected.
Well, your organizations believe in the gender pay gap. That doesn't exist. There's no statistical evidence for it.
We have all the programming to assist them to get there, but at the end of the day, if they don't, you know, then there are other consequences. And that's all change programs have positive and negative consequences. The question that I have, it's really based on a comment that you made, is why do we feel that we have to convince the world that this is the right thing to do? And
I 100% agree with that. There's this sense of we've got...
Because we'll stop giving you business. You'll get a consumer backlash.
Got to convince everyone, and actually you just need critical mass. I do feel like that balance is shifting, and I do feel like that's the strong leadership from corporate Australia, where you both try to engage but you also are not negotiable on your position.
So see that they're not negotiable on their position. I really think there needs to be a consumer push for branding of organizations that only engage in merit-based employment practices and do not discriminate. You know, that would be great. If you went to a petrol station and you know, or you know, this brand does this, or this brand guarantees we will not discriminate at all, we will use merit-based employment practices 100%. We'll be fair and equitable. Would that make a difference to you? Please let me know in the comments, guys.
And I think it's very important for us all to acknowledge that we can only be effective here by our own personal responses and taking a very human approach to the challenges.
My message today, I think, to all of us, and we are leaders who are leading the change on gender equality, not necessarily across the world, but in our own organisations and here in Australia, is that it requires persistence and also it requires courage. We must keep pushing forward. Failure is not an option, and that's about using the power and influence that every one of us has.
So, guys, you saw that. I've given you evidence of discrimination. I've shown you the Sexual Discrimination Act, and you can see these organisations that they're not willing to compromise. Sure, they want to listen to you, but they've got plans in place to promote people just based on their gender, and they'll wishy-washy and listen to you prattle on about it, but they don't care. They really don't care. So I honestly think we need to start advocating for these organizations to not give them our business. Really, we need to not give them our business. Guys, thank you all very much for joining me on this episode of Heiser Says. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to spread knowledge about these type of organizations and what's going on here at this level. That you got social justice warriors at this high level, virtue signaling, and it's not going to affect them personally at all. Financially, it won't have any impact on them, but it'll affect all their workers. So guys, thank you all very much, and I will see you again next time.